Hey everyone, today I've got a compelling story to share, one that really digs deep into life and what comes after. We'll dive into the life of Zayd Idris, a man who hit rock bottom but came back up with insights that might just shift how you think about life after death. You see, he went through a near-death experience, and what he learned about the fate of those who choose to leave this world is nothing short of astonishing. This revelation is bound to alter your understanding of divine love and the secrets that religions often keep about God. Before we jump in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This way, you'll stay updated and never miss out on this kind of thoughtful content. Also, make sure to hit that notification bell. Now get ready for a journey that might just transform your perspective and leave you in awe. I'm Zayd Idris, and I'm excited to share a life-altering story with you, one that navigates through suffering, desperation, and ultimately the power of unconditional love. Growing up in a small town in Firuzabad, I always felt a disconnect, as if I was an outsider in a space meant to feel like home. My early years were filled with chaos. After my mother abandoned me, I was like a forgotten item left behind. Thankfully, a kind neighbor discovered me and intervened to change my fate. My grandmother, Amina, stepped in to raise me. Though she was a resilient woman, caring for me alone became an overwhelming challenge. Tragically, she had a nervous breakdown when I was still a child, and I found myself lost once more in a world that seemed unwelcoming. From there, I was handed over to relatives, people I barely knew, despite us sharing blood ties. These relatives were extremely devout, but not in the nurturing sense. Rather, they wielded their beliefs as instruments of discipline and control. One relative, Sheikh Tariq al-Munir, was especially harsh. He twisted scriptures and doctrines to justify his cruelty, often citing verses out of context. Growing up in such an oppressive atmosphere felt like being trapped in a cage. Each day presented a battle to hold on to my sanity and self-worth. The relentless criticism and harsh treatment chipped away at my spirit, leaving me feeling like a fragile plant struggling to grow in toxic soil, yearning for a little light and love in a dark, inhospitable place. Over time, I learned to adapt just to get by. I became skilled at blending into the background and burying my true feelings and wants. But this coping strategy didn't come without its own heavy price. On the surface, I was the compliant, quiet boy my family expected, but inside, a storm of bottled-up emotions and self-doubt raged. I built my teenage years on this shaky foundation, replete with fractures that were only getting worse, threatening to collapse under the burden of unresolved pain. I had no idea that the struggles I faced would eventually bring me to a turning point that would completely reshape my understanding of love, loss, and the divine. As I hit my teenage years, the shadows of my past loomed larger, casting dark clouds over my everyday life. Years of mistreatment and neglect had sown deep seeds of uncertainty and self-loathing in me. While my classmates seemed to glide through life effortlessly, I felt like a mere spectator, stuck on the sidelines. Depression wrapped around me like a heavy shroud, coloring every moment with its gloom. It felt like I was carrying a weight so profound that it pulled me down with every step I took. Waking up became a struggle. Even finding the motivation to go on felt monumental. I attempted to reach out for help, but whispers from the past filled my mind, insisting I was undeserving of love. "This is your penance for your transgressions," they echoed. These cruel notions, repeated endlessly, morphed into a dismal reality in my troubled psyche. Consequently, I retreated further into myself, erecting barriers so high that even the kindest hands couldn't break through. As my friends moved forward, enrolling in college, launching careers, building relationships, I felt like I was stuck in place, mired in a swamp of my own making. Their successes only highlighted my own sense of inadequacy, stirring up feelings of jealousy and bitterness alongside my depression, forming a toxic brew that consumed me from within. It was during this fragile time that I sought solace in risky behaviors. Alcohol became my escape, my way of momentarily quieting the relentless self-criticism echoing in my head. The pills meant to help my depression turned into a crutch, leading me down a path of misuse. Each day felt heavier, almost unbearable, as I grappled with an emotional turmoil that never seemed to fade. I was spiraling deeper into despair, and the thought of ever experiencing joy again felt ridiculous, like some twisted joke life was playing on me. The world moved on around me, yet I was stuck, watching it all through a foggy lens, completely detached. Nights were particularly brutal. There I was, lying wide awake, tossing and turning, replaying my mistakes on a loop, the heartbreak, the failures, the countless times I felt utterly rejected. The loneliness pressed down on me like a crushing weight, creating an emptiness that engulfed my whole being. In those dark hours when hope felt out of reach, I started to ponder thoughts I never thought I would entertain. If all life held for me was suffering, if I was as hopeless as I believed, then what was the point of going on? Those suicidal thoughts began creeping in. At first, they flashed by like passing shadows, but soon they became more persistent, promising an end to my relentless pain. I struggled against them, clutching desperately to any sliver of hope that came my way, but it felt like I was losing ground fast. Reflecting on it now, I realize I was silently begging for help, my self-destructive actions a cry for someone, anyone, to recognize my suffering. Yet in that moment, all I could perceive was the oppressive darkness surrounding me, tugging me toward a place of no return. As days turned into weeks and then into months, my mental state continued to decline. The concept of suicide had transitioned from a mere fleeting thought to a plausible escape route from the anguish. It was as though I was locked in a pitch-black room, with that notion seeming like the only exit available. I began to plan in detail. Part of me was horrified at what I was considering, yet there was another part, exhausted from the ongoing fight against my pain, that viewed it as an act of kindness toward myself. I found myself researching various methods, weighing the effectiveness and cleanliness of each. I was determined not to leave anyone with extra burdens in my wake. That idea of stepping in front of a train became oddly appealing in my chaotic mind. The finality of it felt like an alluring promise. It would be swift, a definite end. No going back, no surviving to deal with consequences, and no chance of remaining trapped in the same relentless torment. While I was piecing together my decision, a peculiar sense of tranquility settled in. It felt like in choosing to end my life, I had somehow seized a bit of control over it again. I started tidying up my affairs, keeping everything on the down low, of course. Letters of farewell were penned, my meager belongings organized. Reflecting on it now, that cold detachment sends chills down my spine. Around that time, I must have changed enough for some friends to catch on. One buddy in particular, Zayd Idris, became more inquisitive, stopping by more often than usual. I could see the worry etched on his face, but I was too lost in my own agony to recognize it as genuine concern. Instead, I viewed it as pity, or even worse, an invasion of my space. One night, after an especially heated clash with Zayd, I knew the moment had come. He had shown up, adamant I needed support, convinced that things could improve. His intentions felt kind, yet hollow to me. How could he possibly grasp the depths of my suffering, or anyone for that matter? The disagreement intensified, with Zayd, exasperated by my refusal to listen, raising his voice. Meanwhile, my own frustration grew, anger aimed at him for meddling, at the unfairness of life, and at myself for feeling so fragmented. In a surge of impulse, I flung the car door open while it was in motion and leaped out. The collision with the ground was instant and violent. I felt the harsh asphalt against my body and my head striking the unforgiving concrete. The agony washed over me fiercely, but lasted only a heartbeat. Then, unexpectedly, the pain began to fade, almost instantaneously replaced by an exhilarating sensation of lightness unlike anything I had known. Suddenly, I found myself hovering above the chaos below. My body lay prone on the ground, and I could see Zayd running toward me, panic in his eyes, cars halting in confusion. It all felt surreal, like I was watching a scene from a film. There was no fear, no suffering, just this calm, detached curiosity enveloping me. In that moment, I understood. I had crossed a line. I wasn't just toying with the idea of ending my life. I was actually living it. To my astonishment, it was completely different from what I had envisioned. There was no darkness or emptiness, the very things that had haunted me. Instead, I felt an intense vibrancy and awareness, more alive than I had ever felt. As I observed the frenzy below, a part of me yearned to cry out to Zayd, to assure him that I was okay, that there was no need for him to worry. I found myself in a strange state. No voice, no body, just a free-floating consciousness adrift from the broken shell I used to inhabit. Suddenly, everything I recognized began to blur and fade, transforming into an entirely new reality. Whether I was being pulled or was moving of my own accord, something was drawing me toward the unfathomable. It felt like I was on the brink of a transformative adventure that would reshape my entire understanding of life, death, and my very essence. As the familiar world melted away, an enveloping golden light surrounded me. It felt like a gentle embrace, each part of me basking in its warm glow. The experience was beyond description, not just something I could see, but an overwhelming sensory delight that reached deep within me. In that moment, I understood that I had shed my physical form, at least not in any way I had previously comprehended. I was pure consciousness, unencumbered by flesh. Gone were the pains and fears that had once defined me. Here I felt an unprecedented sense of peace and well-being. Strangely, time lost all meaning in this extraordinary realm. I couldn't tell if I was experiencing mere seconds or countless eternities during this initial transformation. All I perceived was movement. Either I was moving or being moved through a space that was utterly beyond human understanding. As I ventured further, I began to perceive other realities, dimensions that existed parallel to mine, typically hidden from view. I witnessed colors unnameable in our earthly tongue and heard symphonies that no instrument could replicate. It felt as though the vast mysteries of existence were unveiling themselves to me, though I could only grasp fragments. Then came a moment when I sensed I was crossing a threshold, a kind of portal. It felt like stepping out of a constricting tunnel into a boundless expanse. The light, already dazzling, surged to an even higher brilliance. Yet rather than blinding me, it sharpened my perception. In this new environment, I began to feel the presence of others nearby. They were not physical beings, but rather entities composed of pure energy and light. Some seemed familiar, as if I had shared previous lives or dimensions with them. Others were entirely unfamiliar, but exuded a warm sense of welcome. Together, they radiated love and acceptance, making me feel completely at home in this extraordinary existence. At that moment, a profound realization hit me. I wasn't dead in the way I had always thought death to be. In fact, I felt more alive than I ever had before. All the agony and struggles that had led me here felt like distant memories, as if I had finally shaken off a long, unsettling dream. As I took this in, an overwhelming urge drew me towards something even greater. It was as if every fiber of my being was beckoned toward a moment that was destined to be deeply significant. There was no trace of fear in this pull, just a riveting curiosity and a sense that I was on the brink of uncovering something of profound cosmic importance. The closer I moved toward this presence, the light surrounding me grew more intense. It felt like I was approaching the very heart of all light and love existing in the universe. Then, in a fleeting moment that felt like it stretched across eternity, I found myself standing before what can only be described as a divine presence. Encountering what I recognized as God was beyond any human description. Rather than a figure like we often envision, it was pure energy, an expansive consciousness that seemed to encompass not just our universe, but something even grander. The initial feeling that washed over me was an all-consuming love. This was a love that eclipsed anything I had ever encountered, something far beyond my wildest dreams. It wrapped around me, filling every inch of my being with total, unconditional acceptance. In that moment, there was no judgment, no condemnation, only boundless compassion that seemed to understand every aspect of my life and loved me even more for it. This experience didn't rely on words. Communication unfolded on a much deeper plane. It felt more like a direct exchange of knowledge and feelings than a conversation. In that instant, the wisdom of the universe flowed into me. I grasped concepts that transcended ordinary understanding, the enigmas of creation, the interconnectedness of all life, and the very essence of existence. In this divine encounter, I witnessed my entire life unraveling before me. It wasn't a judgmental review as I had anticipated. Rather, it felt like a gentle reflection, where every painful experience, struggle, and choice was seen through the lens of divine love. I came to understand that even during my darkest hours, I had never truly been alone. Imagine a moment when you realize you've always been cradled by a divine force, a presence that was quietly steering you along the winding paths of life, even when you weren't aware of it. One of the most significant insights I had was that the hardships I faced weren't just obstacles. They were stepping stones for growth and personal evolution. Each struggle, every ounce of pain, played a vital role in the bigger picture of existence. While suffering is undeniably real, understanding its significance shifted my perspective in ways I hadn't anticipated. Another profound experience I had was feeling this deep connection with everything around me. In the embrace of the divine, the lines separating me from the world around me began to blur. I felt inherently linked to all that exists. This realization flooded me with peace and an overwhelming sense of belonging that had eluded me for so long. During this transformative encounter, I was also shown glimpses of alternate realities, like peering through a window into vast, intricate dimensions. It became clear that our physical world is just a tiny fragment of an immense and complex universe. These visions were both daunting and enlightening, stretching my comprehension of reality and potential. One of the most emotional parts of this experience was when the divine presence reached out to my hidden fears and insecurities. The doubts I harbored about my worth melted away. For the first time, through the lens of unconditional love, I saw my true value in the endless possibilities before me. In that sacred communion, time seemed irrelevant. It felt both fleeting and eternal. I was immersed in something far beyond ordinary human understanding, something that was shifting my very essence and how I perceived both the world and myself. Overwhelmed with gratitude, I cherished this experience, reflecting on my entire life, the joys, the sorrows, and how each moment had led me to this point. I recognized that every aspect of my journey, even the challenging times, carried profound significance. And then, as if I were gently being nudged, I sensed that more was on the horizon, a preparation for the next chapter of this extraordinary journey. I felt a promise of deeper revelations and greater insights that would enhance my understanding of life, mortality, and universal love. Imagine being wrapped in a warm, divine embrace, where suddenly everything you thought you knew about love begins to shift. It was like layers were peeling away, revealing a fresh perspective on the essence of universal love. The first major insight that struck me was the realization that divine love doesn't pick favorites. In the eyes of God, we all hold the same immeasurable value. Our pasts, our failures and triumphs fade away. Divine love is constant, unwavering, and available to every single one of us. To really drive this home, I was shown glimpses of various lives. I witnessed a homeless woman fighting to survive on the bustling streets of a metropolis. Then there was a thriving businessman, secure in his lavish office, far removed from the struggles of others. A child, full of innocence while playing in a refugee camp, contrasted with an elderly man facing his last moments in a quiet hospital room. In every scenario, God's love flowed freely and equally. This revelation hit me hard. For so long I had carried feelings of unworthiness, convinced that I somehow deserved less love than those around me. But here I was, realizing how completely misguided that notion was. In the grand scheme, I was cherished just as much as anyone else, no exceptions. Another powerful insight that emerged was the realization of our interconnectedness. I began to see that every thought, every action, and every emotion sends out ripples that touch every corner of existence, influencing all of us. When we inflict pain on others, we are, in essence, harming ourselves. At our very core, we are all one. This understanding reshaped my views on compassion and forgiveness. The judgments we often cast, whether towards ourselves or others, stem from a limited understanding of reality. From the vantage point of divine love, there's no space for harsh judgments, just room for empathy and acceptance. One of the most profound insights came when reflecting on suffering. I came to see that the challenges we navigate through life are not mere punishments. Instead, they serve as opportunities for growth and evolution. Each hardship carries with it the potential for an invaluable lesson, a necessary transformation. I recognize that my own struggles, the feelings of abandonment during childhood, the pain of abuse, the weight of depression, were not punishments from a higher power, but vital steps in my spiritual journey. Each obstacle presented a chance to cultivate strength, compassion, and wisdom. Imagine discovering something utterly profound about the essence of reality. It struck me that the physical world we perceive is merely a fragment of a much larger, intricate existence. There are countless dimensions and realities beyond what we typically grasp, all interconnected, all filled with the same divine love. I realized that death isn't the end we often think of, but rather a transition. It became clear how souls continue their journey beyond the physical realm, perpetually growing, evolving, and enveloped in love. This insight lifted the heavy burden of fear I had carried around regarding death. One of the most stirring insights centered around love and the power of positive thought. I witnessed firsthand how our emotions and thoughts shape our reality. In particular, love has an extraordinary capacity to transform. I learned that by nurturing love in our hearts, both for ourselves and for others, we can genuinely alter the world surrounding us. All these revelations came together to form a deeper understanding. Fundamentally, the universe is benevolent. Despite the suffering and challenges we see all around us, a greater purpose unfolds, a divine plan filled with love and evolution that encompasses all of existence. As I contemplated these insights, a profound sense of peace enveloped me. The fears and insecurities that once seemed so significant faded away in light of this grand understanding. For the first time, I grasped what it means to be part of something larger, to experience unconditional love, to feel whole. Yet, a part of me sensed that there was still more to uncover. It felt as if I was on the brink of a pivotal truth, one addressing the very issues that had brought me to this moment. As I delved deeper into this transformative experience, I had a premonition of a crucial revelation on the horizon, something that would confront the act leading me here, my suicide attempt. It was as though the universe was preparing to unveil a truth that would upend everything I really thought I understood about life, death, and the choices we face. When this revelation arrived, it wasn't through words or images, but rather as a profound understanding that blossomed within my consciousness. The realization left me truly amazed. The divine presence, whatever name we choose to call it, does not condemn the souls of those who take their own lives. Imagine a moment of pure clarity striking me, illuminating years of deeply entrenched fears and beliefs. Growing up in a religious environment, I held tightly to the notion that taking one's own life was an unforgivable act, believing that anyone who did so would face eternal damnation. This conviction fueled my internal struggles against overwhelming suicidal thoughts, even in my darkest days. Yet amidst this turmoil, enveloped by a profound sense of divine love, everything shifted. I grasped a new understanding. There was no condemnation, no punishment waiting in the shadows. Instead, I encountered a boundless love, deep understanding, and unimaginable compassion. I realized that souls who take such drastic actions are embraced with the same warmth as any other. There's no harsh judgment, just a remarkable awareness of the suffering that led them to such a choice. The divine perceives the complex situations that can drive someone to believe there's no other way out. From this larger perspective, suicide isn't viewed as an act of weakness or selfishness, as society often suggests. Rather, it emerges as a cry for help, a manifestation of agonizing pain from a soul that has reached its breaking point. At the same time, I acknowledge the unique purpose and potential each life holds. Suicide, while not a judgment, disrupts the chance for that purpose to unfold in this lifetime. Instead of seeing it as punishment, it becomes clear that it's about lost possibilities for growth and transformation. When a soul departs through suicide, it embarks on a journey of healing and insight, gaining the chance to view their circumstances from a wider lens. They can grasp the lessons that were inherent in the life they left behind and prepare for future paths of personal evolution. This realization washed over me like a tidal wave, overwhelming my senses. All the guilt and fear I had regarding my own suicidal inclinations melted away. I was swept up in an enormous wave of relief and gratitude, strong enough that if I had still had a physical form, I might have found myself kneeling in awe. But there was more to contemplate. While the divine doesn't pass judgment on acts of suicide, there lingers a deep sorrow when life is truncated. It's not about the soul being lost or condemned. It's about recognizing the beautiful journeys that have been prematurely halted. Each life carries its own value, and every experience serves as an opportunity for growth. The real tragedy isn't the act of suicide itself. Rather, it's in the belief that one is isolated, forsaken, and without hope. In the grand scheme of the universe, there are always alternatives available, pathways for healing and transformation, even when darkness clouds our vision. This realization shifted my perspective profoundly regarding life and death. I recognize that each moment presents a chance to love, grow, and evolve. Even the toughest times are fertile grounds for healing and transformation. As I let this understanding sink in, I felt a significant shift happening within me. All the anguish and despair that had pushed me toward contemplating suicide began to fade away, replaced by a richer appreciation for life and the unconditional love that saturates our existence. It was during this transformative moment that I sensed a new presence drawing near, ushering in the next essential chapter of my journey. As I absorbed this jewel of understanding concerning suicide, it dawned on me that I was no longer by myself in this realm of light and love. Two radiant presences appeared beside me, exuding compassion and wisdom that I instantly recognized as angelic energy. These beings didn't conform to physical form as we understand it. They felt like pure energy, shimmering with colors beyond what we can see here on Earth. Their voices, if we can even call them that, vibrated within my consciousness instead of making traditional sounds. One of the angels greeted me with an indescribable warmth. "Welcome, dear soul. You have journeyed far and shown immense bravery. We are here to provide comfort and guidance." I was inundated with emotion. It felt as though, for the first time, someone truly understood me, recognizing my entire path without an ounce of judgment. Tears formed, not of flesh, but pure emotion, flowing from my very essence. Then the second angel emerged, their energy pulsating with ancient wisdom. "You stand at a pivotal moment in your journey, dear one. Your past choices have led you here, but a new decision lies ahead of you." Feeling a bit lost, I couldn't help but ask what they were implying. The first angel's gentle voice wrapped around my worries like a warm embrace. "You can choose to stay in this wonderful place or go back to your life in Firuzabad." That revelation threw me off guard. Until then, the idea that I even had options hadn't crossed my mind. A sense of happiness surged within me at the thought of staying in a realm filled with love and peace, while the notion of returning to the struggles of earthly life felt almost too heavy to bear. Sensing my uncertainty, the angels offered their support. The second angel chimed in, reassuringly, "There's no wrong decision here. If you opt to stay, you'll be embraced with love. But if you decide to go back, you'll have a shot at significant lessons and the chance to assist others along the way." As I sat with this idea, the angels unveiled vivid images of what could unfold if I chose to return. I envisioned myself healed, helping those stuck in their own pain, sharing my journey with those who felt lost and hopeless. The first angel reminded me, "Keep in mind, dear one, if you decide to go back, you'll carry the understanding and love you found here with you. Your outlook on life will shift in profound ways." I appreciated their insight, yet doubt lingered. "How can I trust that I'll be strong enough to handle life's challenges again?" I asked with concern. In response, both angels merged into a dazzling light, their voices harmonizing. "You will never be alone. We'll remain by your side, guiding and uplifting you, even when you can't see us. The strength you seek resides within you, patiently waiting to be awakened." At that moment, I felt an incredible connection to something much larger than myself. It was as if the love and wisdom I had absorbed were forming a solid center of strength and purpose within me. I came to realize that while the tranquility and affection in this spiritual realm were unmatched, there was immense value in choosing to return and fully embrace the human experience. The chance to grow, conquer obstacles, assist others, and savor the beauty and intricacy of life in Charleston suddenly took on a new level of importance. With that clarity, I felt a powerful urge building inside me, a call to return. I felt a rush of excitement as I realized it was time to return. This wasn't just about escaping pain anymore. It was about embracing the richness of life ahead. Glancing at the angels surrounding me, I could sense their approval. Even though they lacked traditional faces, their energy felt warm and inviting. "I'm ready to go back," I declared, my determination ringing clear in my mind. There's so much I need to experience, so much living left to do, I continued. Their collective energy seemed to brighten in response, as if encouraging me. Remember, they harmonized in a soothing blend of voices, the love and wisdom you gained here will stay with you. Your journey back is one of transformation and purpose. As I braced myself for the shift back to reality, a whirl of emotions surged within me. There was excitement, a flicker of unease, but overwhelmingly I felt deep gratitude for this incredible journey and the new chance at life it offered. The angels began to fade, their radiant forms gently dissolving into the atmosphere. Just before they vanished completely, I heard their lingering words in my mind. Go forth with love, dear one. The world needs your light. With that, I felt a pull, a movement through space and time, as I made my way back to the life I had left behind. An entirely new adventure awaited me. The experience of returning to the physical realm was just as vivid and intense as the exit had been. Picture it, racing through a tunnel of pure light where dimensions and realities whirled past me in a kaleidoscope of colors and feelings. As I neared the earthly dimension, the sensation of physical existence crashed over me like waves. It felt akin to donning a heavy suit after having floated through the vastness of space. Slowly, familiar physical sensations crept back. I began to tingle, then gained a sharper sense of my body. Suddenly, a flood of raw experiences hit me. Sharp pain, cold air, urgent voices, and the clinical scent of antiseptic. When I finally opened my eyes, squinting against the brightness, I discovered I was in a hospital bed, surrounded by a group of astonished doctors and nurses. "He's waking up," one of them exclaimed. "It's a miracle." I tried to respond, but my throat was dry and sore. Luckily, a gentle nurse brought me some water as the medical team dove into their assessments and questions. Bit by bit, I learned about everything that had transpired. I had been in a coma for 2 days after my accident. The medical team didn't think I would pull through, much less wake up without any real brain issues. They spoke around me as I tried to grasp what was happening. My encounter, something divine, full of angels and revelations, felt so intense and real. But now that I was back in this world, I found myself questioning whether it had all been a mere dream or perhaps a hallucination brought on by the trauma. However, as time went on and I started to heal, I noticed something profound had shifted inside me. I realized the heavy depression that had weighed me down before the incident was gone. In its place, a newfound sense of peace and purpose settled in, something I had never felt before. The words of the angels echoed in my mind. You carry with you the love and wisdom you experienced here. It was true. Although the finer points of what happened began to blur, like a dream fading upon waking, the essence of those lessons stayed with me. Recovering physically was tough. My body had taken quite a beating in the fall, and healing took its own sweet time. Yet, for the first time, I met those challenges with a fresh outlook. Each moment of discomfort reminded me I was alive and given a second chance at life. Those around me couldn't help but notice the change. The medical staff seemed impressed with my upbeat attitude during recovery. Friends who came to visit remarked how I appeared different, almost lighter. One of my closest friends, also named Zayd, was among the first to come see me after I woke up. He stepped into the room carefully, his eyes puffy from crying. When he spotted me awake and smiling, he completely broke down in tears of relief. "I thought I had lost you," he cried out between sobs. "I'd never forgive myself if—" I interrupted him gently. "It wasn't your fault, Zayd. Honestly, I owe you a thank you. In a way, you saved me." As the days and weeks continued, I found myself wanting to share bits of my experience with anyone willing to listen. I held back on some details. They felt too personal, too sacred to put into words. But the core of it all, that unconditional love I'd felt, the realization that every life is invaluable and the certainty we're never truly alone, was something I wanted others to understand. As my physical strength returned, thoughts about the future began to fill my mind. Imagine a moment when everything began to click into place for me. It was the first time I truly recognized my calling. After everything I had been through, it struck me that I wanted to harness my experiences to aid others grappling with depression and thoughts of ending their own lives. I dove into research on support groups and organizations dedicated to suicide prevention, resolving that when I felt entirely ready, I would immerse myself in this mission. My goal was clear: to shine like a beacon of hope for anyone who felt trapped in their own darkness, just as I once had. As I prepared to leave the hospital, I reflected on this transformative journey. I had come from a pit of despair so deep that I once considered taking my own life, but now I was stepping into a realm filled with love and understanding, an experience that exceeded my wildest dreams. I understood that the upcoming path wouldn't be straightforward. Challenges and tough moments would undoubtedly arise. Yet this time, I was equipped with renewed strength and perspective. I held on to not just the memories of my struggles, but also the profound awareness of the unconditional love that surrounds us all. Before walking out of the hospital, I took a final glance at the room where I had spent the past few weeks. A wave of gratitude washed over me. It wasn't merely an end, but a beginning to a new chapter in my life. In the months that followed my departure, I found myself immersed in a whirlwind of growth and exploration. Each day unveiled fresh insights as I worked to weave the lessons from my near-death experience into my everyday life. Seeking professional guidance was one of my first steps. Despite the tremendous shift within me, I recognized the need for help to unpack everything I had endured and to confront the traumas that lingered in a constructive manner. I found a therapist who welcomed discussions about spiritual experiences, turning our sessions into a safe haven for me to process and expand my emerging outlook on life. Simultaneously, I connected with support groups for those who had survived suicide attempts and others facing depression. Initially, I took part merely as an observer, hesitant to share my own story. However, as I grew more comfortable, I gradually found the courage to open up about my journey. The responses I received took me by surprise. Sure, some listeners were skeptical, but a good number found solace and encouragement in my narrative. It was truly moving to witness the relief on others' faces as I spoke about the unconditional love I had felt and the understanding that blossomed within me. Imagine the moment I understood that our hardships aren't punishments, but rather chances to grow. That realization filled me with a deep sense of fulfillment. Fast forward a few years, and I now view my life through a lens of clarity and gratitude that once felt beyond reach. Every morning, I rise with a refreshing sense of purpose that shapes everything I do. While my battles with depression don't just disappear completely, it still lingers like an unwelcomed guest. I now possess the skills and outlook necessary to approach it in a healthier, more constructive manner. Through my work as a therapist and speaker, I've found amazing ways to connect with others, often reaching lives in ways I never thought I could. When I look into the eyes of those I help, I see reflections of the despair that used to envelop me. It fills my heart with gratitude to be in a position where I can extend not just hope, but a powerful shift in perspective regarding life and death. That near-death experience wasn't just a fleeting moment. It marked a significant turning point for me, a rebirth of sorts. It revealed to me that love reigns as the strongest force in this universe, that every individual holds a unique purpose. And even during our darkest times, there's always a glimmer of light if we're open to seeing it. Sure, I still find myself occasionally questioning whether what I witnessed was real. Did I genuinely perceive the divine? However, I recall the comforting words of the angels. The love and wisdom you encountered here are carried with you. In that moment, I understand that the essence of truth lies not in the intricate details, but in the life-altering changes it brought about, enabling me to uplift others. Today, I approach life as a beautiful journey full of learning and growth. Each hurdle, every joy, along with those experiences of pain or elation, presents a chance for evolution. I've let go of the fear of death, though I'm not in a hurry to embrace it. Instead, I choose to celebrate each day as a gift, an opportunity to cultivate a bit more light in the world. To anyone feeling lost, enveloped in darkness as I once was, I want you to hear this. You are loved, wholly and unconditionally. Your life holds profound value and purpose, even if it's hard to see right now. That darkness won't last forever, and support is within reach. Please, hold on. My journey is far from over, and there's still so much left for me to discover. Yet I now approach each step with gratitude, a sense of wonder, and a deep-seated belief that, no matter what unfolds, I am never truly alone. That experience on the edge of life opened my eyes to a whole new understanding of existence. It's clear to me now that there's so much more beyond just our physical being. We're all part of a grand tapestry, one that's both stunning and filled with mystery. Each of us holds a unique capability, the chance to spread hope and love in a world that often feels overshadowed by darkness. As I move forward in my journey, I carry with me the radiance from that moment, a flicker from beyond life that I can't ignore. My biggest aspiration is to share that glow with everyone I encounter, to remind folks of their inherent value and the boundless love that exists in everything around us. This tale I'm telling is my testament, a transition from bleakness to brightness, from hopelessness to optimism. It's my heartfelt wish that my story might serve as a guiding light for anyone who's grappling with finding purpose in their lives. Ultimately, I believe life's essence lies in discovering warmth amid the shadows, hope amidst despair, and love in all circumstances. And let's not forget, we're never truly on this journey alone. If you found this spiritual insight meaningful, I'd love for you to like, share your thoughts, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Together, we can spread this uplifting message to as many people as possible. Until we meet again.